Well, I mean, Nightfall itself is a fairly straightforward application. It allows private payments on a public blockchain. That's what it's for. And by payments, I mean transfer of ERC 20721 or 1155 tokens, or possibly other ERC tokens as well, but those are the ones I tend to worry about. So, so, so that's what it's for. The use case is actually, again, reasonably straightforward. If you think of any business transaction, and Paul Brody often says this, it's my money for your stuff. And he's quite right, So that transfer of value is actually what Nightfall was built to facilitate. And actually, it's evolved somewhat over the last few years. We actually built our very first go of Nightfall. We took along to DevCon in Prague, which I think would have been 2018, some time ago anyway.
The 2018 DevCon 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it wasn't terribly practical. I think it cost about $150 a transaction and stuff like that. So, but it was a start, and we've improved it, and we got it working pretty well. A few dollars a transaction, but then the price of Ether spiked, and actually it just became uneconomic for almost any transaction. So I tend to compare it with things like the cost of a Visa transaction, just sort of and I like to keep it cheaper than that. So at that point we were kind of, oh, this isn't going to work. So that's when we started working on scalability, and actually it was Barry Whitehat, working for the Ethereum Foundation, gave us the idea, and so he deserves a lot of credit. Was to use optimism for the scalability. People on this call will be familiar with what optimism is, and then use ZKP for privacy. And at the time, that was a very good choice because it avoided some of the mathematical difficulties you have of trying to do everything with ZKP, which is not impossible, but at the time made it a very expensive thing to do in terms of compute and on-chain costs. Things have changed radically recently, and we can talk about that. But so we added optimism, and that gave us a scalability. So now you can do an ERC20 private transaction for about a tenth of the cost of a normal ERC20 transaction, and we thought that's pretty good. This is now something that will work. And then, just kind of as we were thinking of launching it, the next thing that happened was Tornado Cash, and suddenly everyone became much more worried, I think it's fair to say, than they had previously been about being compliant with your local regulations and being able to demonstrate that you're compliant with local regulations. And of course, that's very much our bag at EY. So we backed off and we started working on it again, and we came up with a solution for that based on X509 certificates. But we tried to do that in a very decentralized way, and I think, whilst the purists may not like it, I think we've been true to the ideals of decentralization. In other words, so you always have a problem if you're trying to make something compliant. Then one of the things you have to do is a sort of know your customer role. So you don't want to be dealing with somebody from North Korea, and you need to be confident about that. Now, that means that someone somewhere or something has to make a decision about whether you, Hudson, are from North Korea or the United States. And that in itself is a form of centralization, because the entity that's making that decision has quite a lot of control over the network. So the answer to that is actually make it so that lots of different people can make that decision. But it can't be as simple as having something like a decentralized autonomous organization with voting, because Because actually, to make that decision, I've got to be quite expert. I've got to know how to do those checks. And so we thought about that for quite a while, and we thought, well, certificate authorities, the sorts that you would get your server certificate from, are actually pretty good at doing that. Maybe not for a server cert, but if you were like a lawyer or a doctor and you wanted to sign a document, they have pretty good processes for making sure that you are a bona fide lawyer or doctor. And so piggybacking on that system is quite good because there's quite a lot of them. And so that does give you a form of decentralization, but it also perhaps gives you the compliance that you might need.
What is the best way for people who are interested in learning more about this, especially developers? Where can they go to learn more and to either ask questions or read up on this?
Okay, so the best place to start is our GitHub repositories. Search for EY blockchain. You'll find all the public domain stuff there. They have readmes, they have links to Git books. That's the place to go.